Why can we see things? To understand this, we need to understand how the eye works and also how the eye is connected to the brain. Here we have a cross-section of an eye. So imagine that someone has taken an eye and cut it in half, and we're looking from the side. Let's look at the different parts of the eye and what each one does. You can see that the eye is kind of ball-shaped. It's filled with fluid, keeping it nice and full so that it doesn't collapse. That's important, otherwise we would not be able to see nicely. This is the front part of the eye, so this is the part that we actually see. This back part here is inside the head, and we don't see that. You know that when you look at an eye, we have eyelashes at the top and the bottom. We have a white part. We have a part that has a color. Some people have blue, some brown, maybe green. And then in the middle of that colored part, we have a black part. So that's what an eye looks like from the front. Now, if we go back to our cross section, what it looks like from the side. Let's see where all of those things are. So imagine up here and down here, we have the eyelashes and the eyelids, of course. The eyelids are not shown. The eyelashes are also not shown. Then here we have the cornea. The cornea is a transparent layer, like a skin, but it's see-through. It's transparent. It lets light through it. And then here we have the iris. The iris is the colored part of the eye. That's the one that can be blue, green, brown, whatever color for different people. Now the iris is actually a muscle, and it's a muscle that has a hole in the middle of it. That hole is called the pupil. The pupil is the black part that we see from the front. It's actually a hole. And this iris, this muscle, can make that pupil bigger or smaller depending on how much light there is. So light travels into the eye through the transparent cornea and then through this hole, this pupil. And that's how it gets into the back of the eye so that we will be able to see. Just behind the pupil, we have a lens. It's actually like a bag which can be squashed or stretched. And it is connected to some muscles on either side, top and bottom, which can squash it or stretch it. And by squashing or stretching the lens, it causes the light to be refracted more or less. Remember, refracted means bent. So the lens, its job is to focus the light. That means to make the light bend the right amount that we can see things clearly. So you know, of course, you have to focus your eyes differently if you're looking at a close object or a far object. And what you're doing there is those muscles are either stretching or squashing the lens to cause more or less refraction to occur so that the light will be bent just the right amount so that we will see things clearly. So the job of the lens is to bend the light the right amount that we can see clearly. This fluid behind the lens also bends the light. It also refracts the light. All of this refraction causes the light to be bent, hopefully just right, so that it lands on this back layer here in such a way that we can see a clear image. This back layer is called the retina, and the retina is where sight starts, we could say. The retina consists of receptor cells. Receptor comes from the word receive. So these receptor cells receive the light. Now they need to change the light into a picture because the light itself can't help us. We need to see what the light is actually being bounced off from so that we can see that object that the light is being reflected from. So we need to see the image. So how does that happen, that the light gets changed into a picture, into an image? The first thing is that these receptor cells are stimulated. They are stimulated by the light. That means that they sense the light. They receive the light. This stimulus is then changed, is converted into a nerve impulse. Impulse is a message that is carried along nerves. Nerves are long, thin cells that carry messages from your sense organs to your brain or from your brain to your muscles. So in this case, the impulse, the message, is sent from the retina through the optic nerve to your brain. And there in your brain, that impulse is interpreted as an image, as a picture. So let's just quickly go through this process again, making sure we use the right terms. Light enters our eye. It maybe came from a luminous object straight, if we're looking straight at something like the sun, which is not a good idea, or a light bulb, or maybe it was reflected off an opaque object. This light enters the cornea, the transparent cornea of the eye, and enters the hole in the iris called the pupil. It is then refracted by the lens. If your lens is working right, it's refracted the right amount so that a sharp, a focused image lands on the retina. The retina is a group of receptor cells which receive this light. They are stimulated by the light, and the stimulus of the light is converted in the retina into a nerve impulse, a nerve message. And that impulse is carried from the retina to the brain via the optic nerve. And when that impulse reaches the brain, it is interpreted as sight, as an image.